we're getting vitamins at Walmart. Check it out. Walmart actually has a really good selection of vitamins, like a whole entire shelf. And I was originally going to do protein powders along with this, but I ended up doing a separate video for that because there's just so much. So I want you to know like what vitamins are worth getting, what's worth checking out, and we're not really focusing so much on the brands as we are like what is available at Walmart and what's going to be a good option for you for whatever lifestyle you're following. So let's go ahead, let's break it down and see what is good and what is a waste. All right, look at this. We're gonna be here for about 4.5 hours, everybody. So get your books ready, get your notebooks ready. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I think we need to cover sort of just, this looks like the multivitamin section. There's something to know about multivitamins first and foremost. With adults, multivitamins really only come into the equation if you're going to be deficient in something, right? If you are deficient, then a multivitamin comes in handy. Otherwise, a lot of times they're water-soluble vitamins that are just getting urinated out, and unless you have a deficiency, you don't get a lot of benefit. The exception kind of comes with kiddos, because I feel like kids can end up being deficient in things a lot easier because of the rapid utilization within their body. The problem is a lot of times you don't find good kid multivitamins. Like for example, if we look at like Flintstone gummies that are right here, we end up with glucose syrup as the first thing. Is this a gummy? Yeah, so glucose syrup, sugar is the first thing. Okay, that's completely canceling out any real benefit there. Let's see if I can find like a regular Flintstone vitamin that's not a gummy, just to kind of give you an idea. You run into this a lot. Like here's a Flintstone, yeah, here's a Flintstone Complete. Okay, this one is sorbitol, maltodextrin, mannitol. So we have a bunch of sugar alcohols, and then of course then we get into this stuff, carrageenan. So you can see that multivitamins are a really pretty big marketing game. Very few multivitamins that I would recommend. When we get into this whole world, we do need to look at this big equation and like what is going to be beneficial. If you're choosing a multivitamin, definitely don't get a gummy. Always go for like a capsule, and always go for ones that are not just loaded with a bunch of the water-soluble vitamins. Try to go for ones that also have some other benefits. So let's take a look at just like this Equate $7.88 multivitamin here. Calcium carbonate, potassium chloride, calcium phosphate, magnesium oxide. Okay, so magnesium oxide is like the lowest bottom of the barrel magnesium that you can get. It hardly lasts in your body at all. It pretty much goes right through you. It's already in an oxidized form. Microcrystalline cellulose, ascorbic acid, iron, ferrous fumarate. Okay, so a lot of interesting things here, but we're not going to get a huge benefit out of. We still have, is this a chewable? No, because it still has glucose in it, which is really weird. A lot of just stuff that is not going to be super beneficial. Sugar, sunflower oil. So you really need to go for something much purer than this. You're not getting a lot of benefit. So when you look at a multivitamin, you do want to look for a vitamin A content that is a little bit less than 100%, because vitamin A you should be getting from your diet, and vitamin A is one of those things that you can overdo a little bit more. Okay. Also, we see a good amount of the B vitamins. Anything where you see just this like crazy amount, which fortunately we don't see. A lot of times you'll see like, 1,000% or 2,000% of the daily recommended value. The bottom line is it's really difficult with multivitamins. I want to try to find one that's going to be like really good. Here's one that's a men's multi-complete. I like that it's in a soft gel, because that means it actually has fat-soluble vitamins the way that they should be in their true oil fat-soluble form. So let's see what we got here. We have fish oil, sunflower seed oil, hydroxypropyl starch, calcium. Yeah, BHT, oh my gosh. Okay, like BHT is one of the worst preservatives you can possibly have. Okay, BHT is like on my list of never touch anything with BHT. And this is in a men's complete multi. I mean, that's what we run into this issue with. It's a big problem. Am I gonna find anything? What's this 1 a day Pro Edge? Complete multivitamin for more, men's 1 a day. Calcium carbonate, magnesium oxide. I mean, inexpensive. It is $8.94. But even this, we have blue number 1. We have yellow number 5. We have polyethylene glycol. Oh my gosh. Like, what is going on here? This is super frustrating. Like that is really frustrating. I just want to find one vitamin, like one multivitamin. Okay, let's try this alive. men's energy. Okay, at least this has like a fruit blend. This is better. Magnesium stearate, that's better. Chain triglycerides. Manganese, magnesium, still magnesium oxide. And that's not if you see magnesium oxide, it doesn't mean run the other way. It just means they're using a cheap quality magnesium. Vitamin A. So far, this one seems like the best. It has a nice eye blend. Has boron in it, which I love seeing boron on some of these trace minerals. Yeah, this one's the best, I would say so far, out of all of them. If you're gonna pick a multi, I would go with the Alive. And this is the men's energy. There's nothing in it that makes it specific for men, if you ask me. The women's 50 plus, probably very similar. Might just have slightly skewed ratios with more folate and things like that. It's a good amount of zinc. How much is in this? Yeah, good amount of zinc in this one, 16.5 micrograms or milligrams. So I prefer to get close to 50. So you could probably get away with taking 2 of these tabs. Okay, that's good. Okay, so at least we know one that is halfway decent. But again, you kind of see the issue we run into there. Now let's kind of just jump through, because the multivitamin section is just very difficult because it's a lot of moving pieces. I want to touch on iron really quick. Very seldom do you find that you actually need an iron supplement. Okay, what ends up going on is iron ends up bound up in a different state within the body. Okay, you have iron that is bound iron and unbound iron. And what happens is when you look and you find that you're anemic, a lot of times it's not that you need more iron, it's that you need iron to be unbound, okay, and needs to be released. Usually it's a magnesium equation there, magnesium copper equation, a very complex sort of system of how the minerals counteract each other. Iron will oxidize, just like if you leave a dumbbell or metal out in the elements, it's going to oxidize and rust. Oxidation is oxidative damage. Iron rusts and oxidizes in our body quite a bit. So unless you are specifically directed by a doctor, I would not recommend taking a bunch of iron. It is not necessarily useful. So would not recommend that. Just to give you kind of a tip there. That's typically what happens with women are told they need iron a lot. In reality is they generally need magnesium when that's the equation. Let's touch on some of these hair, skin, nail formulas really quick. So in this case we have Nature's Bounty, extra strength hair, skin, and nails. What do we have in it? We have a bunch of vitamin A, nice. Biotin, I like biotin, but look at that, 16,000%. That's overkill. You don't need that. Your body's not going to utilize that. Another thing with vitamin B12, you typically want to look for something that's called methylcobalamin. So I know that a lot of this is just a wide variety of things here. We'd be here forever. The reality is when you see vitamin B12, look for methylcobalamin instead of cyanocobalamin. Cyanocobalamin is not as high quality and it goes through a lot of processing in the liver to ever even get to a usable form of B12, and it is bound with cyanide, which is already toxic and the liver needs to disarm that to begin with. Don't go too crazy. It's not enough cyanide to hurt you. It's just what it has to do to the liver, or the liver has to do to it in order to allow it to work. So a lot of times these hair, skin, and nail formulas are not the way to go. You're better off to just go ahead and just get straight up collagen. And I saw some collagen, like here's 11 bucks for collagen peptides, type 1 and 3. You know, it's kind of funny because you can go and you can spend a smorgasbord of like your entire life savings on expensive collagens. But in reality, like a lot of times, like here's collagen, hydrolyzed collagen type 1 and 3, okay? We have a 6.7 gram scoop with 6.7 grams of collagen. That tells us there's no fillers. Okay, if there was a discrepancy there, if it was a 7 gram scoop with 6.7 grams of collagen, we would wonder what is the 0.3 grams that's not listed. There's a discrepancy, right? But here we have a nice even ratio. 6.7, 6.7, which tells us this is exactly collagen, and it's only 12 bucks at Walmart. And that's California prices too, baby. So that could be a lot cheaper somewhere else. So rather than spending money on a hair, skin, and nail formula, spend money on collagen and actually get some protein out of the equation too. Hopefully that saves you a bunch of time and effort. Melatonin, let's touch on this for 1 second. I do not recommend taking melatonin more than 1 to 2 times per month. It is to reset a pattern, not to lean on for a sleep like problem, okay? You need to get to the root of why you're not sleeping. Melatonin is still a hormone, and you are going to disrupt a natural pattern. You are going to disrupt the natural cycle, okay? So what you want to do is you want to have this whenever you're going through a change. Changing time zones, have it for 1 to 3 days while you're adjusting, and then cut it off. Even if it means you have a poor night's sleep for a couple of nights, you are better off allowing your body's natural diurnal rhythms. Best way that you can get your melatonin levels in check is to actually just cut off food at like 6:30 p.m. when the sun starts to go down or whenever the sun goes down. If you're feeding your body while the sun is down, it kind of messes up these diurnal rhythms and environmental cues. Melatonin releases when it gets dark. Okay, so if you're eating after dark, what's happening is your body is getting mixed signals. Diurnal cues or environmental cues from the outside combined with you eating food telling your body you're awake. So cut off the food, it makes a big deal, okay? Big difference. Valerian root is actually okay. I would rather see you take valerian root in a concentrated form than melatonin, because it's actually something that's going to improve a deeper sleep. Just remember, you have to look at your deep sleep and your overall sort of, not just your deep sleep, but also your REM cycles and everything like that. Probiotics, this is an interesting world, okay? Because probiotics are very, very important, because gut biosis, having that totally natural balance in your gut is super, super, super important. But we run into a lot of issues with anything probiotic related. Most probiotics do not survive getting through the hydrochloric acid in the gut to begin with, okay? So we have a whole variety of them here, okay? Ranging from daily probiotics. The thing that matters, when you're looking and shopping for a probiotic, the number of cultures, like 5 billion, 4 billion, you'll see some that have 20 billion here, 4 billion, you'll see some all the way up to like a lot, like some of them 15 billion, 25 billion, 30 billion, and they charge more when you get up to this higher culture count. But the reality is, that isn't always a good thing, because if you're in dysbiosis, adding more bacteria of one kind actually fuels a fire more. You don't necessarily know what you're deficient in. So just because the count is high, that could completely throw off your numbers even more. You want to aim more for the types of strains. This one's interesting because look at 4 billion cultures, less cultures, but more strains. Always go for more strains because it's more diversity. Gut diversity is what we want. And anyone that tells you that a specific strain, you need to take a specific strain outside of someone that isn't a microbiome expert, is trying to market to you. Because a specific strain, although they have different benefits and it's very interesting, you don't know where your deficiencies land. And the best way that we're able to sort of say, hey, this is what you need to have, and this is where you should be, is by claiming diversity. Because our bodies flex and kind of modulate what they need based on how much diversity of microbiome we have. It's very hard to get that. So I would say within this, it's pretty difficult. Like this Nature's Bounty is got so many cultures in there, it kind of scares me a little bit. But let's take a look, just so we can see. Here's Ultra Strength. Okay, so we have Lactobacillus Plantarum, very common. Lactobacillus paracasei, Plantarum Heal. This is all like a Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. A lot of this stuff you're gonna see just in yogurt. So would I spend 11 bucks on it? I mean, that's pretty inexpensive, but there's no prebiotic effect. The probiotic that I would recommend is actually one called Seed. It's a synbiotic. So it has prebiotics and probiotics in it. So it makes it very, very sort of adaptive. So the prebiotics grow the gut bacteria. So when you have a probiotic, you need a prebiotic to help that gut bacteria grow. Otherwise, the probiotic doesn't have anything to fuel it. So if you're not giving that probiotic fiber for growth, it's just gonna go through you, not gonna do anything, it's never gonna colonize. Now, Seed is kind of pioneering a lot of the microbiome research. So if you look at it, there's a capsule inside of a capsule, which makes it really cool. So one is the kind of first stage of release, then the second stage of release, so it potentially is kind of releasing over time, which is very, very important, but also the diversity of strains that they have in there is phenomenal. They're not paying attention to how many CFU, they're more focused on the strains. So I put a link down below if you want to try them out. There's a Thomas 15 code, so it's going to save you 15% off of Seed, so check that link out. Big thank you to Seed too. They do support a lot of content on this channel, and I appreciate that so much. So that link is down below for Seed. Again, use code Thomas15 to save 15% off. That hands down the best probiotic that I've ever used. And I mean, all the way down to like, you feel it, like you take it and you kind of feel like this digestive thing going on. It takes a couple days to adapt to it. It's kind of intense, but anyhow, for what's available at Walmart, it's still really tough because there's not a lot of, you know, like I look at this, like Align is a very popular one. I mean, we have sucrose, sugar in there, like what? And then we have one strain. One strain? Like I don't even know what to really say here because it's so overly marketed. I would rather see you, if you can't afford a good probiotic, I would rather see you just have some like papaya enzymes or just get inexpensive Acidophilus at that rate. Like Acidophilus is kind of one of the more researched ones. There is some hemming and hawing over like what it does within the body and certain like kind of how it can allow different strains to proliferate. The microbiome is just very interesting with that. I don't want to spend any more time on that. Let's kind of move along a little bit. I think fish oils are a very important piece we got to touch on because I talk about it all the time. Okay, pretty much all the fish oils that are here, I would just scrap, okay? They really need to be, first of all, in a dark bottle, which this one is, but the quality of fish oil matters. And when you're at a place like Walmart, no offense to Walmart, they're not investing in the super high quality fish oils. So in this case, you need to probably skip over the fish oils and go directly to krill oil, because with krill oil, you're getting a smaller krill, you're getting a smaller, you know, sea animal, for lack of a better term, that is lower down the food chain, okay? That means it's going to have a higher omega-3 content, but it's also going to have a higher what is called DHA, docosahexaenoic acid content, which is really what we're after, okay? Omega-3s have two different forms, DHA and EPA. Eicosapentaenoic, which is like really good for just overall inflammation modulation within the body, but DHA is really good for the brain, and DHA is a hard one to get because you have to take a copious amount of these kinds of fish oil to ever get enough DHA that's going to modulate any brain inflammation and help the microglia within the brain. So I like seeing krill oil. I don't think you need to go for a super expensive krill oil brand. I don't think there's anything that's necessarily good about those. I think that krill oil, for the most part, is krill oil, but the Spring Valley, I just don't necessarily trust. This has super bad 2 krill oil, okay? Really low dose though, but it has the phospholipids and the astaxanthin, which is what gives it the pink structure. The astaxanthin actually protects the very fragile fish oil. If you leave fish on the counter, it stinks, right? Because fish oil is very polyunsaturated and it breaks down and it denatures quick. Astaxanthin is the pink pigment, the red pigment in krill, and actually stabilizes the fat. Product of Antarctic Ocean, interesting. So that's really cool, I like that. There's some other stuff in there. So, okay, one soft gel, but you're not getting a whole lot of omega-3. So you really need to take like 10 of these. So bang for the buck, you might not get as much. Whereas if we go to like a brand like Corey, which I know they have at Costco too, we have 2 soft gels is going to give you, yes, there we go, 250 milligrams, phosphorus of 100, yeah. Okay, so this one, ultra underdosed. This Corey, you're getting way more. So sure, you're paying twice as much for half as much, but it's clearly better quality. So I would go with that one. Let's see, might be able, yeah, probably better off, like best value would be going with this one. Going the krill oil, $30 for 120. That ends up being best bang for the buck. So go for the krill oil. Now let's jump over to something else that's within that heart health category. Ultra Coenzyme Q10. I know there's different brands here. I saw a few floating around. Like here's a Coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10, it says that it's for heart health, and that's absolutely true because the heart is producing a lot of energy and the muscle that's in the heart is moving very fast and needs a lot of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now, that energy process involves what is called the electron transport chain. That electron transport chain is a very interesting system and complex system in and of itself. It's where electrons are passed down a specific proton gradient. I know I sound like a total nerd, but I am. Okay. Pass down a proton gradient, creating essentially, for lack of a better term, an electrical explosion that creates energy as it falls down. So the basically electron falls down, boom, falls down, boom, falls down, boom, within our cell. And as it falls, it creates an explosion of energy. Okay, Coenzyme Q10 catches the energy. Okay, it's a catcher's mitt. So when we are deficient in coenzyme Q10, we are not efficient in harnessing the energy our body is manufacturing, which can be very, very big problem. Okay, so then you kind of run into this, well, which one's better, which one's this? It's a hard one because how they make it is pretty synthetic to begin with. I do like going for ubiquinol because this is the active form of CoQ10. Okay, now CoQ10 in a non-active ubiquinol form has to go through a conversion process. So I recommend PQQ, I recommend ubiquinol. I don't even know if they have PQQ here. But this one, although it's expensive, it's a pretty good product. So I do like seeing that here. But let's see, like, what's this? Coenzyme Q10, oh, these are gummies, never mind. Just don't bother with the gummies. So this Coenzyme Q10, mega, $21 for a 2-month supply. That's pretty good. So like you're probably wondering, okay, Thomas, you're giving me a lot of details. Like what are supplements that you would recommend? I guess the basics, okay, Coenzyme Q10 is almost always on my list, okay? Good quality fish oil, krill oil is always on my list. A good probiotic is always on my list. And let's just kind of skip ahead into what else I would recommend. I'm a magnesium guy. Magnesium always recommended because we are like so deficient in it. I talked about magnesium oxide, scrap that all together. What is this high absorption magnesium? It's a chelated blend, magnesium biglycinate chelate. It's buffered magnesium oxide. Probably a better option than what's there. It says that it's a sleep support one. I don't know about that. I usually go for dimagnesium malate or regular magnesium malate or magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate. Magnesium threonate is good for the brain. Oh, okay, here we go. So you gotta look carefully. Like right here, I see Calm. These are gummies again. Calm is a good brand for magnesium. I'm just curious what they have in here. Okay, magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate will go through you very quick. If you have too much magnesium citrate, it's going to result in a laxative effect. It tends to deposit much more in the intestinal tract and in the colon. So Calm, I would not recommend that one, especially in a gummy form. I'm stumped. I don't know what to recommend out of this selection because I really go for dimagnesium malate, magnesium threonate, or magnesium glycinate. One of the things that actually is right in front of me that I do recommend a lot of times is acetyl-L-Carnitine. Okay, regular L-carnitine isn't going to help you burn too much fat because you need to have a deficiency in carnitine to actually need regular carnitine. Okay, carnitine is marketed as a fat loss supplement all the time, but the problem is that, again, if you're not deficient in carnitine, it doesn't help out the carnitine palmitoyl transferase pathway, which has to do with, again, fat utilization within the body. Carnitine is needed for fat to get into the cell, but if you're doing keto, the carnitine palmitoyl transferase pathway isn't used because a ketone or a fatty acid can get directly into the cell, but acetyl-L-carnitine is unique because it can cross through the blood-brain barrier, and if you're going to have a deficiency, the first place it's going to lie is in your brain. And alpha lipoic acid operates as a very powerful antioxidant to protect the fatty acid utilization within the brain. So I find that fascinating. There's not a whole lot of bad things that can be added to carnitine or alpha lipoic acid. So I think with something like HCl or ALA or anything like that, you're fine to just go with a cheap brand. Like there's certain ones that you can get cheap and certain ones you should invest in. Vitamin B, I also think you can typically get relatively inexpensive. It doesn't really matter, it's so water soluble. Let's jump over here really quick to zinc, specifically for men. 50 milligrams is a perfect number. Okay, the reason that zinc is great for men, it's great for women too, but the reason that it's great for men is because it helps the testosterone receptor. Okay, it helps androgen receptors develop more affinity. So that means your testosterone levels matter, but what's more important than your actual testosterone levels is what amount of testosterone is getting to the tissue and doing its job. Okay, zinc helps the affinity of androgens to the receptor, which means that when you do have testosterone floating around, it's not floating in the bloodstream, potentially aromatizing and turning into estrogen. It's binding to the cell and actually causing tissue levels to be higher. So I love cycling on like 50 milligrams of zinc, like occasionally. I do notice a pretty quick effect from it. 2 more that are very important, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm trying to just cover the super important ones. Again, there's so much stuff here. 3 more actually. Cod liver oil is very powerful, vitamin A, but again, you probably can't find the right kind of ones at Walmart. You really need to have cod liver oil that's coming from Alaska. There's a company called Jigsaw that also makes good magnesium. So they make good magnesium, but they also make a good cod liver oil. The idea behind cod liver oil is look at nice equal amounts of EPA and DHA. Okay, but you also have good bioavailable vitamin D, not crazy amounts, 135 IUs, but also good amounts of good retinol vitamin A, okay? If you go and you take a regular vitamin A supplement, it's going to deplete your retinol A, okay? And if you go and you take a bunch of synthetic vitamin D, a bunch of it, it can deplete your retinol A. It's all a balance of vitamin A, vitamin D, and those EPA and DHA. So cod liver oil in a good form is great. Again, this one might not be one that I would recommend you take per se, but Okay, I'm looking for chromium because this is a big one for me. I know they have it because it's one that you can get cheap and it's one that I recommend all the time. Oh, there you go. Random spot. Okay, 1,000 micrograms per tablet. Okay, so you take 1 to 3 tablets after having some cheat meals. Or if you're just watching your blood sugar, chromium I think is very underrated, very good supplement to have. And it's such a simple mineral, I don't think you need to have any kind of crazy brand. I think just a simple Spring Valley in this case will do. It's not gonna matter too much. Now the last thing we need to touch on here is going to be vitamin D. I have so many videos surrounding vitamin D when it comes to testosterone, when it comes to digestion, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to vitamin D is so important, but there's something that's so important with vitamin D. If you do not take vitamin D with vitamin K2, you run into a very big issue. You end up with vitamin D that isn't getting into the proper place. Okay, so vitamin D needs to combine with K2. So I don't know if we even see any vitamin D and K2 here. We want D3 and K2. You can always combine it, like here's a K2 and here's a vitamin D3. Your best way to get vitamin D, however, is going to be through cod liver oil or through your diet, okay? If you are low in vitamin D, I would not recommend taking more than 5,000 IUs. Some people take a copious amount of them, and I understand why, because there's a lot of benefit there, but I would typically recommend having, you know, something that's more like 2,000 and work your way up and see how you kind of do with that. That's gonna make a big difference in and of itself. So I don't see anything here. I usually like a liquid form, but I still wanted to touch on it because it's one of the vitamins that I highly, highly, highly recommend. Now, there are a lot of other things that I recommend now and then. Rhodiola rosea, I recommend things like Cissus quadrangulus, I mean, all kinds of different adaptogenic compounds, lion's mane, things like that. But this video would be forever. So I wanted to touch on just the basic big things so you can get an idea. So hope this helped. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. Don't forget to check out Seed Probiotic down below in the description. Thomas15 gets you 15% off, and I'll see you tomorrow.